Hey, UI. Welcome back to Black Chapter. If you're new here, hello. Today, we're diving into something that's been quietly creeping through the corners of horror history for over a century. So grab a coffee or something stronger and get cozy, because this one's going to give you that eerie little shiver in your spine. You ever hear of the monkey's paw? No, not like some creepy taxidermy at your uncle's weird cabin. I mean the story, the curse, the urban legend. This little tale has been haunting people since, well, literally before your grandparents were born. It's been turned into plays, inspired horror movies, crept into pop culture, and even wormed its way into people's real lives, like real people claiming their lives got wrecked after coming across one. It's this idea that you can wish for something, anything, and boom, it'll come true. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. Today we're going all the way back to where it started. We'll talk about the British author who birthed the cursed monkey paw myth, the psychology behind why we love the idea of cursed objects, and how it's shown up again and again in pop culture and so-called real life. We're talking everything from old-school Victorian horror to Reddit threads that'll make you turn on your lights before bed. Let's get into it. So let's rewind a bit. The year is 1902. It's rainy, it's gray, because of course it is, we're in England, and a guy named William Wymark Jacobs drops this eerie little short story into the world. Now, W. Jacobs wasn't exactly known for horror. He mostly wrote humorous stuff, sea tales, that kind of thing. But with A Monkey's Paw, he flipped the switch, and it landed hard. The story was first published in a British literary magazine called Harper's Monthly. It starts out all cozy and domestic, a little family in a tiny house out in the middle of nowhere. The Whites, Mr. and Mrs. White, and their adult son Herbert, are just living their quiet little life when a friend drops by. And this friend, he's a soldier. He's been stationed in India and he's brought back something weird. That's right, the monkey's paw. It's this dried up little thing, like not cute at all, and apparently it has some magical power. It grants 3 wishes to whoever owns it. But like any good horror artifact, it comes with a warning. The wishes will come true. Yes, but never in the way you want. They always come with consequences. Big, irreversible ones. Of course, the family shrugs that off and takes it anyway. And as you can probably guess, they make their wishes. First wish? Money. £200. Not a huge ask, right? Just a bit of financial help. Well, the next day, their son Herbert dies in a freak accident at work. And the company, they send the family exactly £200 as compensation. Yeah, that escalated quickly. Then comes the second wish. Mrs. White, completely devastated, begs her husband to wish Herbert back to life. And what happens next? Well, the story doesn't tell us exactly what knocks on their door, but it's not Herbert the way they remembered him. Cue the final wish. Mr. White, terrified of whatever undead thing is about to walk through the door, uses his last wish. And just like that, silence. End of story. It's creepy. It's minimal. It's deeply effective. And here's what makes it really stick. The horror isn't in blood and guts. It's in that sinking, quiet realization that the thing you thought you wanted might cost you everything. This was peak fin de siècle horror, very turn of this century. Think of it like this. The Victorians were obsessed with death, the afterlife, and exotic artifacts from their colonies. So a creepy charm from faraway India? Perfect setup for a moral lesson disguised as a horror story. But unlike the tales that wrap up neatly, The Monkey's Paw ends with this quiet horror that lingers. It made people nervous to even talk about what they'd wish for. It stuck in the brain. And that's why, over a century later, we're still talking about it. Alright, so we've covered the basics, the spooky story, the original curse, the grim little house with 3 wishes and 1 very dead son. But the real question is, how does a 10-page short story written in 1902 survive over 100 years, leach into pop culture, and get treated like folklore? Let's start at the top. Literary impact. When The Monkey's Paw was first published, it didn't instantly blow up. This wasn't one of those stories that had people screaming in the streets or clutching their pearls at the newsstands. No, its power came from something subtler. It was quietly unsettling. And in a time when horror was mostly about ghosts or gothic castles, The Monkey's Paw felt personal. The horror lived inside your own house, inside your grief, and inside your bad decisions. By the early 1910s, the story had made its way into school books and stage plays. Not just in the UK, but in the US too. People were reading this story aloud at school, at church gatherings, and even at parlor parties, which, let's be honest, were like the original version of horror podcasts. Someone reads a scary story while everyone else eats tiny sandwiches and silently freaks out. What really made it sticky, though, was the simplicity. Think about it, 3 wishes. That's fairy tale level accessible. Everyone knows how wishes work. We've been fed wish-based stories since we were kids. Genies and lamps, wishing wells, birthday candles. But Jacobs added that fatal twist. Wishes come true, but never the way you want. That twist? It taps into something deep in the human brain. Psychologists call it the ironic process theory. Basically, the more you try to control an outcome, the more likely your brain is to sabotage it. You wish for money, but deep down, you're bracing for the worst. And sometimes your decisions or expectations help make that worst-case scenario happen. It's not supernatural. It's cognitive bias. But when you wrap that up in a cursed monkey paw, oof, it feels supernatural. Now here's where things get juicy. The monkey's paw story didn't just inspire literature. It started bleeding into other legends. As early as the 1920s, variations started popping up all over the place. Some folks told it as if it was a true story. Others localized it. There were urban legends about the cursed hand in Boston or the 3-wish mirror in rural Ireland. Different details, same bones. Someone makes a wish, it backfires horribly. Which brings us to folklore parallels. If you zoom out and look at global mythology, the monkey's paw is just one more entry in a long, long line of stories about getting what you want and paying for it. Take the tale of Faust. Written in the 1600s and retold a million ways since, Faust is about a man who makes a deal with the devil. He gets knowledge, power, wealth, but loses his soul. Classic. Same structure, desire, deal, consequences. Or look at the jinn in Middle Eastern folklore. These aren't your Disney Aladdin genies. These are ancient, supernatural beings who will grant your wish, but with a trick. Wish for beauty? You might lose your voice. Wish for immortality? Congratulations, now you're trapped in an eternal coma. Again, the core warning, be careful what you wish for. In Japanese folklore, there's a similar motif in the form of the yubuna. These spirits can bless or curse a family, depending on how they're treated. They're often linked to specific objects or heirlooms, and if you mess with one, bad things start happening. A child gets sick. A house burns down. Same vibe. The object isn't the villain, it's the medium. You invited the consequences. Even in Native American tales, there are warning stories about spirit tokens or enchanted artifacts that bring misfortune, especially when taken or used selfishly. No matter the culture, the lesson repeats. Tampering with the supernatural for personal gain always ends in regret. So why does this structure work so well across time and geography? Well, here's where we get into the cultural psychology of fear. Humans, for better or worse, love patterns. And when something terrible happens after a wish is made, even if the events are unrelated, we want to connect the dots. It gives us a sense of control. It turns random tragedy into a story with cause and effect. It's also a moral shortcut. These stories often act as little life lessons. You get greedy, you suffer. You mess with fate, fate messes back. These are cautionary tales designed to keep us humble and a little scared. They tap into our need for justice, or at least cosmic balance. And let's be real, we love the drama. It's the emotional math of horror. One wish plus one creepy artifact equals disaster. It makes for perfect campfire stories, stage plays, radio dramas, and yes, eventually, TV and movies. But we'll get into those adaptations in the next chapter. For now, let's look at the last twist, how the monkey's paw managed to transcend the page and get treated like real folklore. By the mid-20th century, people were treating the story like it actually happened. Urban legends blurred the lines between fiction and fact. Teachers told the story without mentioning W. Jacobs. Creepy uncles told it at family gatherings like it was something that happened to a friend of a friend. And because it was so short and easy to retell, details kept changing. In one version, the paw was from a circus monkey. In another, it was found buried in a cemetery. The wishes changed too. Some versions involved forbidden love, others military drafts, others sudden wealth. But the ending was always grim. This malleability, it's what let the monkey's paw evolve from a short story into a framework. You could swap out the paw for a ring, a stone, a book, a mirror. It didn't matter. What mattered was the structure. It became a template for modern horror. Today, even if someone hasn't read the original story, they know the setup. 3 wishes. Careful what you wish for. That's all it takes to invoke the whole chilling concept. It's not just a tale anymore. It's an idea. Blueprint for caution. A whisper from the past reminding us, sometimes the thing you want the most is the thing that destroys you. So now that we know where the monkey's paw came from, how it evolved into an urban legend and folklore blueprint, let's take a little detour into the real world. And I'm using real here in air quotes because, well, these next stories are a weird mix of fact, superstition, and straight-up mystery. We're talking about cursed objects, real-life artifacts that people swear have brought death, disaster, or just a whole lot of really bad luck to anyone who touches them. And yes, the cursed monkey paw may be fictional, but the idea that an object could somehow hold dark energy or bring misfortune, that's very much something people believe. Like a lot of people. Let's start with probably the most famous one, the Hope Diamond. This thing is huge. Like, we're talking 45 carats. Deep blue. Gorgeous. And allegedly cursed to hell and back. The diamond originally came from India. Sound familiar? Supposedly stolen from the eye of a Hindu idol. And the moment it was removed, the curse began. The first known owner, a French gem merchant, was torn apart by wild dogs. Others who owned or wore the diamond died in grisly accidents, suicides, beheadings, you name it. King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette owned it. Where'd they end up? That's right, guillotined. Eventually, the diamond made its way to the US, where it landed at the Smithsonian. And fun fact, when it arrived, the person who mailed it insured the package and then walked straight into traffic and died. Coincidence? Maybe. But it didn't stop the whispers. Even the Smithsonian started getting letters begging them to get rid of it. Like, burn it, bury it, throw it in the ocean. Anything but keeping it on display. Now, is there actual proof that the diamond causes these tragedies? No. But people see the pattern. They connect the dots. And once an object gets that kind of reputation, it's hard to shake. Next up, the Dybbuk box. This one's weird. The story blew up in the early 2000s thanks to eBay. A man named Kevin Manis listed a wine cabinet for sale, nothing too wild, except the item description said it was haunted. He claimed the box had belonged to a Holocaust survivor who warned that it housed a malevolent spirit, or Dybbuk, from Jewish folklore. After buying the box, Manis said strange things started happening. Lights would shatter. He'd have terrifying nightmares. Everyone who handled the box got sick or had personal tragedies. Like everyone. It eventually landed in the hands of museum curator Zach Bagans, and the box was featured on Ghost Adventures and in the horror movie The Possession. Post Malone even claimed he was cursed after visiting it. He was in a car crash, a plane nearly crashed, and his home got robbed, all within months of interacting with it. Again, skeptics will say it's all in people's heads. But the belief, the sheer fear, is real. Another case, the Bonovis. This one dates back to 16th century Italy, supposedly made as a wedding gift for a young bride who died mysteriously the same night she received it. After that, the vase passed through several hands, and every single owner either died suddenly or under strange circumstances. We're talking murder, suicide, unexplained illness. Eventually, local authorities locked the vase away with a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death," like a literal do not touch label for the afterlife. It resurfaced in the 1980s when it was dug up by construction workers. And yeah, more deaths followed. It's now believed to be hidden somewhere, possibly buried again to stop the curse from spreading. Let's do one more. This one's got Hollywood vibes. James Dean's Porsche Spyder, nicknamed Little Bastard. Dean died in a car crash in 1955 while driving it. Tragic, yes, but not supernatural. Until parts from the wrecked car were reused in other vehicles. And guess what? Multiple people who used those parts either died or were seriously injured in accidents. Even the car's shell, when displayed, fell and crushed a mechanic. Eventually, the wreckage vanished. Gone. No one knows where it is. Some believe it was stolen. Others say it was destroyed. Or maybe the car just didn't want to be found. These stories all follow a pattern. A specific object becomes associated with tragedy. The deaths stack up. The rumors grow. And before long, the object isn't just cursed, it's legendary. And here's where things circle back to the monkey's paw. Each of these cases echoes that same central idea that an object can hold power. Not in a wizarding wand kind of way, but in a more psychological, symbolic way. The item becomes a lightning rod for fear, grief, paranoia. And humans, being pattern-hungry little creatures, start blaming the object for everything bad that happens. Folklorists call this contagion logic. It's the belief that a physical thing can be tainted by emotion, tragedy, or supernatural energy. Like, if someone evil owned this ring, then the ring must be evil too. If a terrible thing happened while wearing a dress, then the dress is cursed. That's contagion logic. It doesn't matter if the science doesn't back it up. What matters is belief. Because belief shapes behavior. Take museums that house cursed artifacts. They get hate mail. People blame them for deaths in their family. Some visitors even refuse to look directly at certain items. In Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, people sign waivers before they go near the Dybbuk box. That's how deep the fear runs. There's even a whole genre of online horror stories about cursed items. On Reddit, forums like r/NoSleep and r/paranormal are full of tales about people finding weird coins, creepy dolls, or random trinkets and watching their lives unravel. Some are clearly fiction, but others, they feel a little too detailed, a little too sincere. And sometimes, these objects become scapegoats. Something terrible happens, a death, a divorce, a fire, and people look for a reason. It's easier to blame a mirror or a music box than confront chaos or random chance. That's not superstition. That's coping. But it also shows just how powerful stories are. One object, one rumor, one accident, and suddenly you've got a curse on your hands. It's the same emotional engine that makes the monkey's paw hit so hard. You make a wish, it comes true, but then everything falls apart. Whether it's a fictional paw, $100 million diamond, or a box on eBay, the effect is the same. It worms into your brain and whispers, what if? What if the object really is cursed? What if the wish cost you more than you realized? What if you were warned? And suddenly, the story isn't just a story. It's a framework for understanding loss, grief, and fear. It's folklore in action. And that, my friends, is why cursed objects never go out of style. Because deep down, we all want to believe that fate leaves breadcrumbs, and that maybe, just maybe, we can trace the source of our suffering back to something we can avoid, bury, or throw away. If only it were that easy. Okay? So we've looked at how the monkey's paw began as a chilling short story, spread through folklore, and somehow even crept into real-life legends of cursed objects. But now it's time to talk pop culture. Because if there's one thing the entertainment industry loves, it's a creepy little concept with just enough moral sting to keep people awake at night. In this story, oh yeah, it's been done, redone, parroted, twisted, and injected into every medium from kids shows to R-rated horror films. Let's start with the obvious. The Simpsons. Yeah, The Simpsons did it. In their iconic Halloween special, Treehouse of Horror 2, Homer buys a monkey's paw from a mysterious street vendor during a trip to Morocco. Sound familiar? He and the family each make a wish, and no surprise, every single one backfires. Lisa wishes for world peace. Boom, aliens invade Earth because nobody has weapons anymore. Bart wishes to be rich and famous. Great, until people get sick of seeing him everywhere. The episode wraps with Ned Flanders, yes Ned, taking the paw and somehow using it perfectly. Because of course he does. Now, The Simpsons didn't invent this parody, but what it did was cement the monkey's paw as a cultural reference point. Even if you've never read the original story, chances are you've seen some version of it on screen. And trust me, there are a lot of versions. Like Goosebumps. Remember that episode, The Haunted Mask? Or Be Careful What You Wish For. They don't directly reference a monkey's paw, but the structure is the same. You get your wish. It goes terribly. You panic. You want to undo it. This was basically the blueprint for every don't touch that artifact plotline in 90s and early 2000s kid horror. Or how about Are You Afraid of the Dark? That show had multiple episodes revolving around cursed objects that granted wishes: mirrors, coins, old lamps. Always with the same eerie rhythm. A teenager makes a selfish wish, something creepy happens, and there's a price to pay. But it didn't stop with kids' shows. Oh no. The Monkey Paw graduated to full-blown horror. Let's talk about Stephen King. If you've read Pet Sematary, then you've basically read a modern Monkey's Paw. The story centers around a family who discovers a burial ground that brings things back to life, but not the way they were. Sound familiar? King has openly cited the Monkey's Paw as an influence. And in Pet Sematary, that influence is raw. The grief, the desperation, the horror of getting what you asked for and immediately regretting it. The story's core message, don't mess with death, echoes through the entire book. It's grief horror. And that, more than anything, is what the Monkey's Paw has always been about. Jump forward a few years, and we get movies like Wishmaster. This 1997 cult horror film is about a demonic genie who grants wishes in the most grotesque ways possible. You wish to be beautiful. Your skin peels off. You wish for eternal life. You're turned into a statue. Again, same skeleton, different skin. Even psychological thrillers like The Box, based on the short story Button, owe a debt to the Monkey's Paw. In the film, a couple receives a mysterious box with a button. Press it, and they'll receive a large sum of money. The catch? Someone, somewhere will die. That's the Monkey's Paw DNA. A moral dilemma wrapped in a supernatural transaction. And we can't ignore horror anthologies. The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, Black Mirror, they've all done their versions. The wish comes true. The wish turns sour. Someone pays the price. Even in gaming culture, we see it. Horror video games like Until Dawn or The Quarry often involve choices that backfire horribly. They're not called wishes, but the consequences are the same. You chose wrong. Now everyone dies. And let's not forget music and comics. The heavy metal band Metallica has a song literally titled "A Thing That Should Not Be," which plays into the idea of unleashing power that should have stayed buried. Comics like Hellblazer and Sandman explore similar themes: power, desire, and dark bargains. So why does this concept have such staying power? Because it's modular. You can fit it anywhere. Horror, fantasy, drama, even comedy. Swap the paw for a box, a coin, a genie, a mirror, boom. You've got a story. It's a perfect moral structure. It teaches us that desire isn't free, that shortcuts have consequences, that grief can cloud our judgment. These are timeless ideas, and when you add a creepy object into the mix, instant horror fuel. But here's what makes the Monkey's Paw especially durable in modern pop culture. It's personal. The horror doesn't come from an outside villain. There's no slasher or monster chasing you. The real villain? Your own decision. That's powerful. It's also why modern reboots and adaptations keep finding new angles. In 2013, there was a movie titled The Monkey's Paw, a straight-up horror film that took the original premise and reimagined it in New Orleans, involving a zombie twist. Not great reviews, but again, the idea worked. Streaming-era content is tapped it too. Shows like Creeped Out, Inside Number 9, and two-sentence horror stories all build off the same DNA. The wish, the price, the regret. Even memes and internet horror embrace it. Think about those cursed TikToks or viral videos where someone jokes about making a wish, and immediately something awful happens. That's the Monkey's Paw in 20-second form. It's a structure that's gone from campfire tale to cultural instinct. And the reason it keeps coming back, especially in horror, is because it forces us to ask ourselves, what would I wish for? And worse, what would I risk for it? That internal tension, that's the engine of every great horror moment. And the Monkey's Paw put that idea in our collective bloodstream. So the next time you watch a horror movie and someone says, I just want things to go back to the way they were, or I give anything to see them again, you'll know exactly what's coming. And honestly, that's what makes this story so powerful over a century later. It's not about the paw. It's about us. By now, we've established that the monkey's paw isn't just a story, it's a structure. It's been folded into folklore, embedded in media, and tied to real-life superstitions. But here's where things get especially fuzzy. There are people who swear they've lived it. Let's start with urban legends. These are modern folklore, stories passed along as true, but rarely traceable to a verified source. You know the type, this happened to a guy my cousin knows. And yep, monkey's paw-type tales pop up in these circles constantly. Take the legend of the cursed vending machine coin. This story shows up on forums as early as the late 90s. Someone finds a strange coin, usually foreign or antique, uses it to buy something from a vending machine, and starts having bad luck. Car accidents, breakups, pet deaths, and of course, when they try to get rid of the coin, it always finds its way back. It's not a direct retelling of the monkey's paw, but the elements are there. A random object, a moment of desire, then the spiral. Then there's the Reddit universe. On subreddits like r/paranormal and r/no-sleep, users regularly post stories of strange objects or seemingly innocent wishes gone wrong. These are user-submitted horror fiction, but some of them come with that signature creepy tone of sincerity. One such post, now infamous, tells the story of a wish jar. The writer describes a small, handmade clay jar gifted to their grandfather. The instructions? Whisper your wish inside, seal it, and bury it. He wished for financial security. The next day, his business partner was found dead, and the estate transferred to him. According to the writer, the jar was found years later when the garden was dug up. Inside, the lid had shattered. They claimed their family experienced a wave of misfortunes afterward. Accidents, illness, a fire. Are these true? No idea. But belief? Belief is real. And that's what matters in folklore. Folklorists argue that when a story becomes widespread enough, when it hits that everyone's heard aversion level, it starts acting like memory. People might remember experiencing a monkey's paw type event, even if they didn't. It becomes personal folklore. And once a story gets personal, it sticks. Here's where it gets darker. In some rare cases, people have tried to recreate the monkey's paw effect on purpose. In online witchcraft spaces and chaos magic forums, users have posted about crafting wish tools, from animal bones to carved wood, and experimenting with making their own versions of the paw. Most of the stories are harmless, more symbolic than anything else. But some users have claimed unsettling outcomes: losing jobs, sudden illnesses, eerie dreams involving shadowy figures, or whispers warning them to stop. It's impossible to prove or disprove these events. But again, it's not about whether the paw works. It's about what the belief does to the person holding it. In psychology, this is called the self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe something bad will happen. You interpret events that way. You frame random misfortune as consequence. Your anxiety spikes. You make worse decisions. You create the bad luck. The monkey's paw, in this context, is a lens. It frames your reality in consequence and paranoia. And in that headspace, even a stubbed toe can feel like punishment. Which brings us to one final layer: grief. A lot of monkey's paw-style stories center around loss. Someone dies. The survivor wants them back. They make a wish. And what returns? Is it right? That particular fear has deep roots in the human psyche. We're terrified of death, yes, but we're even more afraid of what it might mean to undo it. Will it come back? Would it still be them? Would we recognize it? In this way, the monkey's paw isn't just about bad luck. It's about crossing a line, wanting too much, grieving too hard, losing the ability to accept reality. And that might be the real horror underneath all of this. The idea that, in our desperation to fix something broken, we might just break it further. So we journeyed from a foggy little short story in 1902 through creepy legends, cursed artifacts, and pop culture chaos. And now we're left with a big question. What does it all mean? Why does the monkey's paw still hit? Why does it make people pause before saying, "I wish"? Why do we keep retelling it? At its core, the story is about want. Not just casual wanting, like, "I want a milkshake," but deep, desperate, aching want. The kind that makes people ignore warnings. The kind that makes us beg for one more chance, one more dollar, one more day with someone we lost. And that's why it's scary. Because it reflects us. Not the monsters under the bed, but the ones sitting quietly in our own hearts. When Mr. and Mrs. White wish for money, it's understandable. They're not greedy, just practical. But the cost is their son's life. When Mrs. White wishes him back, it's not selfish, it's grief. Pure, raw, and real. And when Mr. White uses the final wish to undo that, it's not fear, it's mercy. That emotional complexity, that's what elevates the Monkey's Paw from a spooky tale to something timeless. It's also a cautionary tale about control. Humans crave control over their lives. We want certainty. If we could wish our way out of suffering, we would. But the Monkey's Paw reminds us that sometimes what we want most is the very thing we're not supposed to have. And today, maybe more than ever, that message still resonates. We live in a world of instant gratification. One-click ordering, on-demand services, swipe-to-match dating. We're encouraged to want more, get more, fix more fast. But the lesson buried in Jacob's old story still applies. Shortcuts can come at cost. Wishes can backfire. And not everything broken is meant to be repaired. There's also a psychological undercurrent here. The importance of acceptance. Accepting loss. Accepting limits. Accepting that some things, no matter how unfair, can't be undone. In grief therapy, this is a core theme. The idea that holding on to what was can prevent us from living in what is. And the Monkey's Paw makes that literal. Holding on to your grief can bring back something, but not what you wanted. Not the way you remember it. And that might be more terrifying than loss itself. Finally, there's the legacy. The Monkey's Paw has become a storytelling device, cultural symbol, a universal shorthand for be careful what you wish for. But more than that, it's become a mirror. It makes us ask, what would I wish for? And what would I lose in return? That's the hook. That's why it lingers. Because whether it's a dusty short story, haunted doll, a YouTube horror video, or a joke in a cartoon, the Monkey's Paw always brings us back to that one chilling truth. You might get what you want, but you might not want what you get. And there you have it. From a dried-up little paw in a haunted short story to modern curses, pop culture nightmares, and internet folklore, the Monkey's Paw has proven that it's not just a creepy antique, it's a concept that lives in us. Because the truth is, we're all one desperate wish away from becoming part of the legend. So the next time you find yourself saying, I'd give anything for insert longing here, maybe pause for just a second. Think about Mr. White. Think about the door that never fully opened. Think about that whisper from fate that says, be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever heard a Monkey's Paw type story growing up? Maybe a creepy family heirloom tale, or a personal experience that felt a little too weird to be coincidence. Tell us in the comments. Seriously, we read them all. And hey, if you like today's video, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you don't miss what we dig up next. We've got a lot more dark tales, urban legends, and strange histories coming your way. And if you have something you want us to feature next, drop it below. We're always looking for the next cursed story to uncover. Until then, close the book if you can. This is Black Chapter.